Recording is in progress. This is a class that is going to, this market is not as useful for a class like this as other markets because things are moving so quickly. But what I did want to, and it's going to be a pretty short class, we're not going to be here for a whole hour, but I wanted to teach you today about like what I have done in the past. And some of you, in even having been around a few months, are going to learn your own ways of doing things. But since I have been, I sold for 14 years or so, I had like ways I would do things that work better than others. And I just thought I'd share those pieces today. So what I wanted to teach you wasn't like, I am going on a showing and I met this person, or it's just a one-off, I met them on floor or something. This is more like you've been wooing the buyer and they have been to Durango. Well, I'm saying Durango. They've been to Bozeman or anywhere that you're living before, but they've never been there to look for homes. And now they're making a special trip back to see you, and you want to see everything that they might buy and see if you can get them to put in an offer while they're here. And you're going to spend a couple days with them. So more of, especially when you're dealing with kind of high-end buyers where there might be more inventory, because I know in my market, at least right now, if somebody said they had two, and this has been the case for almost a year, if they have 2 days to spend with you, you're like, okay, well, it's been an hour, I'm done, because there's nothing else on the market. So how do you best approach those showings so that you can have a day that is not really like just horrible? Like I've had some pretty horrible days showing where I go, I could have done that a little bit better. I had all this time to prepare, so let's go ahead and prepare it. And then if you have any questions, just stop me anytime. Or if you have something that's worked for you, please interrupt me, because you have you've all been out in the field enough. So what you're trying to do is, yeah, I always like thinking of like, I'm very ninja, and you're trying to make it a green light to buy. Like everything is going well, they found the house, you have everything you need for them to feel like they're making a competent decision. So with the buyer process in general, if this is somebody that's coming here for 2 days, or this is somebody that you just met on floor, I am really, really strong, or I've gotten that way over the years, of being able to walk people through a process. I don't just get in the car and go see a property. That has never worked for me. I have known agents that are really good salespeople that can get a person they don't know in the car, they just met them on floor, and they sell them a house. But that's not the market we're in. Like, how are you going to meet someone in one day and then get them to a house, and then you're going to explain that really, if you want this house, you got to come in 20,000 over. If you have cash, that's great. You might want to waive some of your inspections, and and definitely waive your appraisal, and you definitely will pay more than whatever it appraises for. And they're going to like trust you. How would that really possibly ever work? So the process is super important. If you need a process to look into, Ninja Selling is a great tool that I've used over the years, where you have an interview with a buyer. Even if you're just meeting on floor, you take the time to sit down with them and find out what they're really looking for. Because if that person doesn't want to take the time with you, then they just want to see one house. Is it a waste of your time? Especially when some of these properties, I know like Bozeman market or in Durango market, you could be in the car for over an hour trying to just get to the property. So does it make sense to just do that and then find out that there's another agent in the wings who happened to be out of town that week, and that's why they're calling you, because they don't know you and they don't mind wasting your time? So you know what I mean? Like, I've tried it all different ways, and personally, I am not the kind of person that can just sell a house to somebody that I just met. They have to meet with me, and the stronger you get as an agent, the stronger you'll be able to pull them in, ask the right kind of qualifying questions to make sure that the people you're actually setting up the showings for are worth it. Because it kind of stinks. You have somebody coming in, and then you spend the 2 days with them, they leave town, and you find out like at the end that buyers sometimes if they don't have the green light, are going to kind of shut down and say, we weren't going to buy on this trip anyway, or, we just have to think about it. Oh, this isn't going to work for us. And then they go back home and they stop thinking about your area so much, and they get back into their normal lives. And then you kind of they can lose interest. You lose them. You just spent a weekend with somebody and you're not going to get a sale out of it. So what I'm talking about today mostly are those planned buyers events. We've talked over the phones while looking at houses. We've narrowed it down. And then when someone's coming to town, I like to set their expectations. So even if this is a $2 million home buyer, I know Vail, you might get that, or you could get it in Durango. If they're super high-end luxury homes, you could have a lot of inventory in most markets, maybe not right now, but usually you have a bunch of homes that you could see. But how many is that? Like, how many homes can you really see in a day? You have all day. You could be with them 12 hours, but what's realistic? I found personally that you have these buyers that are like, I just want to see everything. I want to see everything when I'm there. And 15 homes is not going to work. I don't care like how many days you are with the people. You can't see that many houses, right? So can you see 8? Could you see like 5 on the first day, or 6 or 7 on the first day, and then maybe the last one on the last day, and then narrow it down, and maybe they want to go back and see a couple homes the next day? That's realistic to me. I could show 8 homes, and knowing that in my county, that is like almost a 200-mile day sometimes, because you're showing them all the way up at the resort, all the way over in this town, all the way over here, and you're driving them around the whole county while you're doing it. So be realistic about setting their expectations of, okay, I'm just letting you know, like, let's see this entire map and show you where we have to go to see these houses. Because when they're looking on paper, they get excited and like, oh, I want to see that one too. Oh, I want to see that one. So trying to like draw them into that funnel and say, let's talk about this one is way the heck out there. And I just don't think it's going to work for you because it has this and this and this. And do you really want to be that far from town? Do you really want the kind of lifestyle that you're going to wake up in the morning and you want to go grab a cup of coffee? You literally have to drive for 50 minutes and you're never going to be able to access it in the winter the way you want to access it. So for our county, you can just tell them, you know, here's the resort and then this house, like there's a mountain chain. So if the house is over here, you got to like drive all the way over and then over here. It's just not going to work for them. So sometimes I can't talk people out of that. And do I make people drive the night before? Sometimes. It just depends. If it's a super high-end client, I'm not going to go and tell them, go drive around and see what you like, because I want to be with them and having that experience with them. But just try to do your best of not saying, okay, well, I'm a new agent, so I'll just take you everywhere. Because what happens is if you don't set their expectations on the front end and they get discouraged because they're showing so many houses and they're really tired, and especially if they have kids, the kids are cranky, you didn't do it exactly right. They just get like, you know what? We're just going to go and have a fun day tomorrow. I'm sorry, but we'll come back on another time. So you know what I mean? So it's real important to spend your time on the front end trying to plan out the time that you have with a person. So how do I do this? So what I do, and I'm just talking you through, I'm not going to show you the MLS or anything, but I have a map process. So if you had that many houses that you could actually see, and some people don't really know what they want. They just want to like, I love the ultra modern, but you know, it's not really Colorado. So I might go for this. So it's not a style. And I'm talking more about higher end people that there are more listings to show them. I'm going to look at the whole thing on a map, and I want to see how I'm going to map out my day to set it up for success. So sometimes I'm trying to set it up for, okay, like if you're in a rural area, you actually have to think about things like bathrooms. Like there's no place you can stop on the way. So I'm going to think about if it's a vacant home and it's in the middle of winter, even if it's a high-end home, could their water be shut off? You know, so you're not going to want to, again, you're setting yourself up for success. So you don't want to have the person driving 45 minutes from town and then you see 4 houses and all of a sudden it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and you had nowhere to stop for lunch because you were so far away. So you're kind of like mapping your day and looking at all the houses out there and going, gosh, if I saw these houses out here in the morning, we could stop for coffee. I can show them that really cool coffee shop that's on the way. Like for me, Malia, it's bread. I always like to stop them at bread. Let's grab some cookies and some juices and stuff like that. Then I'll take them to a couple homes. Then we can stop back there, use the restroom if there wasn't one in the house, and then keep going in the other directions. But you're trying to map out your day in that way. Like, let's hit this entire area. So you have this idea of how you're going to plan out your day or your day and a half. And then you need to check the showing instructions, right? So you're all doing this when it's an actual customer coming to town. You never just sit down the day before and say, okay, I'm just going to like throw it together. You have to plan it out and try to look at the showing instructions and say, are they vacant? Or let's say I wanted to go in this direction in the morning and then go over here, but I find out that they have showing instructions that say you can't disturb us during the morning because I work from home. It has to be the afternoon. So you just need to really like think it through so that you don't have you don't want to call someone 3 times to say, okay, I got to change that to 2 o'clock. So that kind of thing. Okay. And then personally, I like to always bring some, obviously you want to bring water for people. You want to make sure that I like to have people in my car. I know with COVID, things have changed. I have heard recently that even with high-end showings, people don't get in your car anymore, which I find really strange. I like to be able to be their tour guide because I know it's awesome to listen to my XM stereo and just go around the couple counties and have the day to just like unwind when I'm not talking to them. But it was so much better to be a tour guide and say, so check out that mountain. There is the best trail up there. I know you like horseback riding. That is like the best one over there. And you see this, so the college is up there, and then these apartments down here were originally built for that. And then I'm just talking about things, and oh, they have this, there's a hockey rink. We just went by the hockey rink, and the high school does a really good job in the winter. There's always games to go watch. So you're just making them love your town. So whatever it is, if you can get them in your car, and you can also have more time to connect with them, and you have more time to talk about the listings that either you're going to go see, or the subdivisions, or, okay, we're going to go buy one subdivision and there's nothing for sale in there right now. But if this was one that I was looking in for you that I thought might work, but then I decided this. So you're just talking the whole time, like you actually are feeling hoarse by the end of the day. I liked it. I thought it was much better, but I get it that people just don't do it anymore. And if that's the case, then it is what it is. What does that mean? I had a note here. Anyway, okay. So you want to be prepared and have a smooth day. I made sure that when I was calling on the listings that I'm going to go see, do you ever have that customer that they just have their heart set on a certain house? And in this market, you're probably a lot better at talking to people about, okay, by the time you get here, most of these listings aren't going to be around anymore. But there are houses that have been out there in most markets for a long, long time. Okay, maybe they're all gone now, but I bet in 6 months, we're going to have listings that have been out there for a long time. And you just assume that it's going to be out there another 4 days. But if you have a customer who is super set on seeing that one house, the worst thing that could happen is you set up the showing the day before and you find out they just got an offer in. And they are so disappointed. So they get to your office, you go, I'm so sorry, they just accepted an offer this morning. It's so much better to hear about it the week before and say, I know you had your heart set on that, and I know you couldn't move up your trip. They ended up, it looks like there's a really interested party in it. So I just want to make sure you understand that it might be gone by the time of our trip, because that is a bummer when they find out the day that they're meeting with you, and it sets the tone for the day. So that's one thing I definitely wanted to do, is setting the appointments a couple of days before I'm actually out with them. Chrissy.
In a situation like that, would you ever recommend doing a video walkthrough?
All the time. So in this market, this is like when they get there and they weren't ready to make an offer or see something. But if they had their heart set on something, heck yeah, I am like doing the video and like, let's write it sight unseen. This person is going to be there in 2 days. We'll have the physical inspection that weekend, and absolutely. And that is what we do all the time now, is doing the sight unseen or that kind of thing. I mean, in my market, I'm sure it might be that way in yours too, that you'll get people that say, I will fly in tonight. Like, I will make this happen just to make sure I can see this house, because sometimes people don't want the sight unseen offers anyway. So yeah, this is more like, there's no way this person's ever going to write an offer. So I'm going to get them to town. Does that make sense? Okay. These are some basics. Making sure your car is immaculate, clean. I lived on a dirt road forever and ever. So it would be like the morning of the showing, it got dirty on the way to town. And I have had people that were annoyed by that. Like, they just don't get rural properties, and it is what it is. My car got dirty on the way to work, but just make sure your car is immaculate. It says a lot about you. Be well dressed. Obviously, we're all in different markets, but be sensible about what you're bringing. If you are someone that likes to wear nice shoes, guy or girl, and you aren't sure about this, like maybe you don't usually walk rural properties, and you have these resort buyers and you think, I'm going to wear my high heels because I'm in all these nice houses. Make sure you have some old boots in the back of your car, or some sneakers, because I've had people that are randomly want to go walk the lot, and you have like the prickers and everything else. So just make sure you put your boots in there. Make sure your phone is charged. You probably have a charger in your car, but what was the other thing? Do you have a super key? Like, a lot of us have these super keys. Make sure the app is working that morning. Make sure you just check that everything is going to work. You're not going to get to the property and it's not going to work. Don't let anything go wrong. Always think about lunch. get your mints, get the music set in your car if they're going to be in your car. And so then the way I have always found a couple of things that work. So if your folks are the eager beaver type and they want to go see everything and you're like, oh my God, I know you're probably not going to like these things, and it's not a $2 million buyer, I would say if they get to town and they want to go drive some of the subdivisions, get them excited about that, I would totally hand them a packet with a map and say, just go drive these subdivisions, because I'm pretty sure you're not going to like it. Maybe send them to the one that's the furthest out so you can knock that off the list. There is no harm with, never feel embarrassed that you're saying no to a showing that you had set up. Never feel embarrassed about that. Like, you had your people drive by it and it's not going to interest them. It looked great online. So if you want them to drive it, but always go with your gut. If it's not someone, if you feel like somebody would be annoyed that you're sending them out to drive the property, like you don't want to take the time with them, then don't do that at all. So I go ahead. Was somebody saying something? Nope. Okay. So what I used to do for organizing, I didn't like put this on a screen or anything, is I take each property that I was going to show them, and in the MLS, you're going to have different views. And I picked the view that I liked, agent, or, you have the view that you need to read because it has like the commission on it and the name of the agent and where the directions are and all those kind of things. So I always printed out all the ones I had that I needed, right? And then I printed out a nice display one for each person. I know we're not paper people anymore as much, but I always found it was nice for them to sit in the back and look at the listings as we're driving out to them, okay? So then I made a nice manila folder. You can get a really nice like display folder. And each day that I was taking them out, I would just say what day it was and what we were going to show. And then I print out the nice MLS sheets with only what was supposed to be on it. And then I'd code it with which one it was, okay? And the reason was I would have that, and there's going to be better maps now, but get a map out of a nice magazine, like Bozeman probably has a magazine. I know Durango has some magazines. Get like a nice printed map that you can make color copies of, and then put where those listings are on the map so they can follow along and be like, oh, we're going over here. It's a visual way. Sometimes I've even drawn on the map, which is like, this is the desert, this is the high alpine. And I know that for high-end people, they love that. They feel like, even if they've done a ton of research, they feel like you're just wanting to share those kind of things with them. But it gives a way for them to follow along. But another thing you're going to get are buyers that want to take a lot of pictures in a house. And so then they can remember to just put a one up, take the picture, and then they know which house it was, that they can kind of all draw it together. I always had GIS maps. I know, again, paper, but it's nice to have something that you have physically in your hands that when you're out there, you can show them, okay, this is the GIS map of the area. You see where those trees are. That's kind of on this section of the property, so they can physically look at it while they're in there. But when you have this all organized in a nice display, then as you're going, if it's not one that they want, you just throw it in the back of the car. Like, then you're narrowing it down, okay? So make sure, of course, that, let me think. So I had the GIS maps. Make sure you have a brokerage disclosure to buyer. I know I went over that in the last class, but you in different states, you're going to have different kinds of disclosures. In Colorado, there's a form that you have to give to the buyer before they start telling you all the things about themselves. I'm sure there's one in your state. It doesn't mean you have to have them signed up as like an agency relationship, but you just need to disclose anything you need to disclose in your state. Make sure you have a copy of it in your paperwork so you can get that out of the way. HomeSnap. So HomeSnap, everybody, have you guys all heard of HomeSnap? It's an app, and I'm sure you have it everywhere you could look into it. HomeSnap is an app that for the most part, it's like, has no use for me. But the one thing I would use it for, and maybe some other apps do it now, maybe even your local MLS app, but HomeSnap's one that if you have have service wherever you're going, cell phone service, you can turn it on. And then if you're walking a piece of property, it'll show you how close you are to the property corner. It's probably not exactly accurate, but that's the only thing I used to use that for, is people are like, where do you think the property line is? And I'd be like, pull out this thing, and they go, oh my God, that's so cool. Because it'll show you walking towards the property line, and it'll give you an idea of, is that fence on the line? Or, oh no, that's a cross fence. The actual fence is back there. So I loved HomeSnap. I have no idea. I don't have to pay for it here. So I would think that anybody can use it. I know there's a consumer side and an agent side, but I think that it's a really cool one. And I didn't have to like type in the property address. It just showed me satellite view of where I was standing on it. So I found that was great. Okay, here's some other things. If you're newer and you haven't gone to a subdivision yet, especially the high-end ones, I always like driving them the night before if I had time. So I wanted to know if the code was going to work. I wanted to understand where the house was in relation, so I don't look like a fool that I've never been up there before, because I've never been up there before. So I would take the time to do that if I had the time to do that, to make sure I felt like a champ the day of. It's just horrible when your E-key isn't working, or you run out of water, or one of your buyers has to use the bathroom, or you don't know how to open the lock. Like, there's some things I'd like to know beforehand. And then if you have a buyer that you feel like you can really get them to make a decision, and it's fewer houses that they're seeing, I always provided comps. Okay. So I'm showing you, I have this whole folder of all the properties we're going to go see. It's not 8 houses. Let's say it's 3. Then I'm going to provide them all the comps. So when we're sitting there in the house, they say, what do you think about that price? Well, this is what I know about this subdivision. Here's all the homes that have sold here in the last year, but let me walk you through the ones I know about. I think it's priced realistically, or I think it's high, but judging on the market, it's okay. But I always did that. And I know that takes a lot of time, but then there's no reason for them to say no. They can't say, hey, will you go run comps? I'll meet you tomorrow. No, it's like, it's right there. You can make an offer. Christy.
So I've been learning a lot about safety issues while on the job. And a lot of advice I've gotten is get to the property before your clients, tour the property before they're there. So things like, you don't have to go down the basement ahead of them. You could even just stand upstairs and direct them to what's down there, stuff like that. Do you ever recommend going to see the properties the day before on your own?
That's a great question. I have never had to do that. I have had a really bad incidents in my office. One of them was me. Okay. So I am very aware of safety situations, but in my entire time of showing, I have only once gotten into a situation where I said, I shouldn't have done that. Like, every other time I was able to manage the situation really well. So we have an app called Forewarn here, and it is free here. You have to use Forewarn. Forewarn gives you police information about people. Like, are they a sex offender? Are they this? Like, you find out all this stuff. And if their phone number doesn't come up, then it could be kind of a warning sign, but usually we're going to find it. We found a potential kidnapper, and one of the people that was a new agent in my office, we were like, that doesn't sound right. All of this really sounds bad. And then we looked him up, and there were like kidnapping things on his thing. I'm like, what? How is this person not in prison? Right. So we've avoided a lot of incidents with just using Forewarn. Okay. The other one is, you just don't hop in the car and go out and meet someone at a property for always. You never show something at night. That was the one that, not the bad incident that did happen, but the one time I was standing and go, what the heck am I doing? It's at night, like, because it gets dark so early, and he couldn't get out till 5:15, and it was a new home with no electric. So you're just like using your flashlight. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I knew the buyer, but I still felt weird. So what I have done is, you just make sure, and this is for every showing ever, and I don't care if you're a guy or girl, you never go into a property with the person behind you, ever. Okay, because we are in one of the occupations that has the most risk. So you always have them go in first. I know that they say, like, in a high-end home, you're going to want to turn on all the lights. And yes, I've done that for people, but then I've removed myself from the house, so they go in first. I never want to be caught where, and so if I was doing that and I'm in a house and I'm meeting them there, I'm locking the door. I never let people in where I don't know they're coming into the house. Okay. But it's the same thing with the creepy basement. I've had a lot of creepy basements, or they're going upstairs with you. I always have them go first. So I am always back far enough that they can't grab me. Okay. And you just have to, I don't care if you're a guy, like, you still could get your watch stolen or something like that. You just always want to be behind the person that's entering, and it doesn't matter if you're with a couple, because we've had weird things happen with couples too. The only one, always listen to your pricklies. Like, the one that I had was an agent who didn't trust this guy. And she said, I think he has this thing with me. So I want to remove myself from the situation. Will you show him property? And I met with him and also felt the pricklies and said, something's wrong. And the whole way to the showing, or before I met him, I was like, I don't know if I should go. So I had this woman meet me at the house. It was in the middle of nowhere. She met me at the house and he was visibly angry that she was there because obviously something, I know. So we all left the scene, like we couldn't get him out of the house. We almost had to call the cop and we're like, oh my God, something almost happened. This is 10 years ago and I will never forget that. So always listen to your sixth sense, never go into a property without the person. So even if you do have them in your car and all of those kind of things, I can't imagine something would happen while you're driving, you know, it would be at a house. And really, if they're in your car, unless they're going to steal your car, like there's probably, but if you were driving separately, I would have more fear of it because they could do something and then take off. But I would definitely not let them, because we've had weird things where the guy and girl go into different rooms and you think there might be a theft or something going on, but just make sure that they go into rooms before you. And I've always felt safe. I don't know that I go to the extent of that kind of stuff. And I always used to carry mace too. I always had that on myself just to feel safer. Any other
We
questions
actually
about?
have pepper spray in our office for us to take.
See, and I think that's a great idea. I always had it on my purse or in my pocket or somewhere that it was very accessible, on my keychain, somewhere that I had it. And until I had kids, then I couldn't do it anymore. I'm like, I'm gonna have my 2-year-old find it in my purse, and I'm not selling anymore, so it doesn't matter. But any other questions about that? Okay, let me see. So the home snap, safety, comps, driving by, tour guide, and then just have fun. Have a bunch of scrap paper. That's another thing I always had, is like I'd have a clipboard, I have scratch paper. So if they want to like write down notes, and I'm writing tons of notes while we're at the property, they don't like the drapes. There was a wine cooler that they really liked, like any of those things, so that you can remind them which ones they had. I always try to narrow it to the 3 they like. If you're showing like 8 houses and they're on their 4th, I try to talk in the car about, well, what are your top 3? And they say, you know, it's these 3. And then I say, is it fair to get rid of this 4th one? Like that's not one that you're going to make an offer on. They're like, yeah, you're right about that. So always at least narrow it down to that. And then have fun with a day, have lots of good food, time for lunch, make sure they get back before it's the end of the day. And then I also made sure I had a wrap up, if we could wrap up, even if it's just standing in the parking lot where you're talking about, okay, how do you feel? Like, is there one you want more information on, or do you feel like we could make an offer? And then if you are making an offer, it's a great, I always found that I said, why don't you guys go have a beer, go have a cup of coffee? I'll give me half an hour to start the offer, and then we'll meet in the office and we'll get it signed. So giving yourself a little bit of a reprieve from them, so you can just catch your breath, call the listing agent, find out the information you need, and then meet them later, so that you're not feeling so on the spot. But that's really all I had. Anything else that you guys have questions about? How it's different in your market, or things that have worked for you? Have you guys gotten in that? What is the most homes? I'm going to ask you, what are the most homes you've ever seen in a single day? Malia, I know you've shown the most homes to a single buyer of anybody I've met, but I don't know.
Probably in a day, just 5.
Yeah. After 5, there's no way you
well,
can keep them straight.
Yeah, I think with that one, actually, we had 4 booked, and they drove by another one, and we're like, oh, can we see that one too? And was able to make it happen. So
that's another thing. What app do you guys use? I know HomeSnap does it. I bet RPR does it. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's like Zillow does it now too, where you can drive by a house. Do you ever have that where they say, well, why aren't you showing us that house? And you say, well, let me pull it up. And again, it'll show you what you're driving by, and it'll say, oh, because it's 200,000 above what you could afford. And they go, oh, okay, no problem. Or you drive by it and they go, well, that one looks perfect. And you go, oh yeah, but it's only 2 bedrooms and 4. And they go, oh, okay, that's why you didn't have it. Because people always think, well, you're just taking us to the Coldwell Banker listings, or, you know, like they always like think that you're trying to manipulate what they're buying. And it's like, no, they're different houses have different prices, and you told me what you're looking for. So, but that's all I got. I made it a real easy one. Anything else you could think of? I have next week is going to be